Welcome back, lore walkers. Today we're diving into World of Warcraft Midnight, aka the Real Housewives of Silvermoon. We're finally going home to the Sunwell, Azeroth's giant glowing kick-me sign for every Void Lord in the zip code. But before we start worrying about the Void Lords rearranging the furniture, we need to talk about the people actually running this show. To understand the mess we're walking into, we're digging deep into the chaotic backgrounds of the heavy hitters who made Silvermoon the "it's complicated" capital of Azeroth going into Midnight. From the accidental CEO Lorthamar to the goth queen Illyria. And you'll definitely want to stick around until the very end, because I'll share my top predictions for Midnight, including who I think might not make it out of this family reunion in one piece. But honestly, these elves haven't had a quiet decade since they were fighting trolls with sticks. First up, we have Darkon Drathier. If you ever feel like you've messed up at work, just remember Darkon. This guy was a high-ranking magister who felt he wasn't getting enough credit, so naturally, instead of updating his LinkedIn, he decided to help Arthas Menethil and the Scourge bypass the city's magical defenses. He literally gave the keys to the kingdom to a guy leading a zombie parade just because he wanted a promotion. He's largely the reason the Sunwell got corrupted, 90% of the population died, and the elves have had a 20-year-long collective migraine. Next up, we have Grand Magister Rameth. Rameth is essentially the exhausted HR manager of Silvermoon. He survived Kel'Thas going crazy, the Burning Legion, and the daily stress of keeping a city made of glass and hairspray from exploding. Rameth has a very simple policy. If it looks like a demon or smells like a void god, put it in the bin.
Nope.
He's the guy who has to tell everyone no. He's grumpy, he's tired, and honestly, he has every right to be. He spent his whole life watching his friends turn into raid bosses. Which brings us to Magister Umbric. If Rameth is the strict dad, Umbric is the son who went to college and came back with a degree in forbidden deep-sea whispers. In the short story, The Void Between, we see the peak of this awkwardness. Umbric was worried that the Sunwell was still a giant target, which is valid, so his solution was to start poking in the void. But here's the kicker. He started his research by reading Darkon Drathir's old notes. Back when they were roommates.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Darkon, Umbric, and Rameth had a little "I'll do it if you do" moment at college with the Void, and if Rameth was the dweeb of the friends who said they shouldn't do it, then Umbric was the "I don't have an addictive personality" kind of guy. In hindsight, imagine your BFF catching you reading the diary of a guy who burned your house down. That's kind of the vibe we're getting here. When Rameth found out, he didn't just give Umbric a warning, he gave him the "get out and take your shadow squids with you" speech.
Fight.
So, in Midnight, we're heading towards a total collision. You've got Rameth trying to keep the Sunwell void free, while Umbric and his void elves are showing up like, "Hey guys, we're back. Also, we're partially made of this stuff that's currently trying to eat the planet. Can we stay in our old rooms?" It's going to be tense, it's going to be petty, and Rameth is probably going to need a very long vacation after this. We're looking at a three-way standoff between the trauma of the past, the rigid protection of the present, and the dangerous innovation of the future. As a quick note, Blizz loves to bring back blood elves. Wow, that's a tongue twister. Blizz loves to bring back blood elves. And digging up the past of these guys, and I wouldn't be 100% shocked if they gave Darkon a part of the spotlight. Not like we haven't seen KT enough, or Kel'Thas for that matter. KT and Kel'Thas both being KT. If you think your family holidays are awkward because your uncle sits around and talks about politics, imagine sitting down for dinner where mom is hearing voices from the literal abyss, and dad is a 1,000-year-old human flashlight. And the son's just trying to figure out why he was raised by an innkeeper, while his parents were playing laser tag in the Twisting Nether. Meet the Turalyon Windrunner clan. It's the most "it's complicated" family in Midnight, to go with the most "it's complicated" city. First, we have High Exarch Turalyon. Turalyon is what happens when a paladin drinks too much Sunny D. He's fought a 1,000-year war, which sounds impressive until you realize he's basically missed his son's entire childhood because he was busy being the Army of Light's favorite golden retriever. He's currently the Regent Lord of Stormwind, which basically means he's the substitute teacher of the Alliance. He's pure, he's holy, and he glows in the dark. He's the kind of guy who thinks the light is the solution to everything, including his marriage. Then there's Illyria Windrunner. While Turalyon was getting light forged, Illyria decided to snack on some Void. She's the first Void Elf, which means she has a constant toxic group chat going on in her head, where the Whispers tell her to kill everyone that she loves. She was pretty badass, and then for some reason they decided she needed a new character model, so at least we got a animated cool short story out of it. But she's edgy, she's voidy, and that's all I really have to say. At midnight, she's the main protagonist with her son Eretor, which is great for us but terrible for her blood pressure. She's trying to save her homeland while the Void is whispering in her ear. And then caught in the middle is Eretor the Redeemer. Poor Eretor spent his life waiting for his parents to come back from getting milk and cigarettes in the twisting nether. His parents were gone for 2 decades, so he pretty much grew up as a half-elf orphan raised by Varisa, which in Azeroth is basically the starter kit for main character syndrome, yet somehow he's the most well-adjusted person in the family. To understand why they're so stressed at midnight, we have to take a look at the story Blood Ties. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it, but it takes place post the War Within. It's basically a high-stakes counseling session where the therapist is replaced by a demon-slaying road trip that ends with everyone needing more therapy. After Turalyon and Illyria come home, they try to have a normal moment with Eretor, and it goes exactly as well as you'd expect. They realize they still haven't adjusted to being home and don't truly know how to parent. Illyria tries to connect with Eretor, but she's so void-brained at this point that she struggles to be present. Meanwhile, Turalyon is trying to act like he didn't miss 20 years of birthdays. Turalyon tries to walk a bit of a line between a loving father and a higher-ranking paladin trying to make his son follow protocols. The story highlights the heartbreaking reality. Eretor loves his parents, but he barely knows them. And Illyria is terrified that the Void will eventually force her to hurt the 2 people she cares most about. In midnight, the Void is invading Quel'Thalas. This means Illyria is going home to the place that hates her, with a husband who represents the force that wants to purge her, and a son who's just trying to keep the peace while stepping out of his famous parents' shadows. Here's the thing, guys. It's not just a war for a well, it's a war for the soul of this family. Will Turalyon have to choose between the light and his wife? Will Illyria finally mute the Void group chat? Or will Eretor finally tell them both to go to their rooms and think about what they've done? If Midnight's taking us back to Silvermoon, we have to talk about the man who's been temporary leader of the Blood Elves for 20 years, Lor'themar Theron. And of course his much cooler, much more magical wife, First Arcanist Thalyssera. Together they are the mom and dad of the Horde. If mom was a 10,000-year-old rebel leader, and dad was a weary middle manager who wants everyone to stop touching his fountain. But let's start with Lor'themar. Lor'themar is the patron saint of his people who got promoted because everyone else above him died or turned into a raid boss. When the Scourge hit Silvermoon, Lor'themar was basically Sylvanas' second in command when she was the Ranger General. Sylvanas became a Banshee, Kael'thas went to space to huff Fel energy, and Lor'themar was left holding the keys to a city that was 90% rubble. He's been the Regent Lord forever because he refuses to call himself king out of deep respect for Kael'thas' dad, Anasterion. And also because that title is cursed in WoW, so just, don't do it. Believe me. He's stoic, he's got a majestic eye patch, which has definitely always been on the same side of his face. Don't check me on that. He has the most expensive hair products in Azeroth, and he's kind of a G. Then we have Thalyssera. If Lor'themar is the grumpy red elf, Thalyssera is the fancy purple elf. She led the rebellion in Suramar against Elisand and the Burning Legion. She spent thousands of years under the magical dome drinking ancient mana, which we know is just glowing grape juice, but whatever. And eventually decided that being a mana addict wasn't a great long-term career path. She's the leader of the Nightborn, and she brings a level of main character energy that Lor'themar desperately needs. She's the one who looked at the Horde, full of orcs living in mud huts and undead living in the sewers, and said, "You know what this faction needs? More Pinot Noir and a high-end tailor." Lor'themar and Thalyssera's romance is the only thing keeping the Horde's moral compass spinning. They met during the Nazjatar campaign, which is the perfect place for a first date. A literal hole in the ocean, filled with angry fish people. Couldn't think of a better one myself. While the rest of us were grinding world quests, they were busy writing poetry to each other. Seriously, there's a whole short story where they trade poems. It's adorable, it's nerdy, and it makes every other horde leader look like a barbarian. They finally got married during the Dragonflight era, which means they are currently on the honeymoon phase, just in time for the Void to try and eat their house. In Midnight, the stakes are personal. The Void's coming for the Sunwell, which is Lorthamar's literal backyard. Thalyssera is a master of arcane shields and ancient magic. She's likely going to be the one to try and figure out how to put a do not enter sign on the Sunwell that the Void actually respects. Meanwhile, Lorthamar has to lead his people through a second potential extinction. Expect a lot of dialogue where Thalyssera tells Lorthamar to breathe, and Lorthamar tries to figure out if he can tax the Void for trespassing. A quick break from the family trauma. You guys have better taste in videos than the Windrunners do in Significant Others. If you're enjoying the drama, hit the like button and subscribe to join our merry band of lore-obsessed chaos gremlins. It's free, it helps the channel, and unlike a trip to the Sunwell, it won't accidentally invite a Void Lord into your living room. Probably. Let's keep the Sunwell glowing and the subscribe count growing. Alright, back to the video. You can't talk about Silvermoon without talking about the woman who invented the Blood Elf Paladin aesthetic. The First Lady of the Light, Lady Liadrin, and more importantly, we need to talk about her daughter, Salandria, because their relationship is basically the bring your daughter to work day from hell, mostly because work involves fighting cosmic horrors. Let's start with Liadrin. Back in the Burning Crusade, Liadrin was the leader of the Blood Knights, and her vibe was, let's call it, aggressively edgy. They had an issue with magic addiction and wanted to get an injection of holy guacamole. The Blood Elves decided that the solution was to kidnap a literal wind chime god, the Naru, Mara.
Becky, what are you doing? Uru! Uru!
Where are my damn notes? Oh, here it is. Muru, sticking him in a basement in Silvermoon and draining him like a AA battery to get their spells. It was efficient and highly unethical. However, after Muru sacrificed himself to reignite the Sunwell, Liadrin had a coming to the light moment. She traded the Goth Paladin look for the Holy Crusader look, and she's been the Light's biggest fan ever since. If there's a demon within 5 miles, Liadrin's already there with a glowing mace and a lecture about the Sunwell's glory. Then we have Salandria. If you played the World of Warcraft 15 years ago, you remember Salandria as the little blood elf orphan you took on a field trip during Children's Week. You bought her ice cream, you showed her the sights, and ignored the fact that when you took her to the Caverns of Time, the Bronze Dragonflight literally almost tried to assassinate her. The Bronze Dragonflight saw possible futures where Salandria did something terrible, and instead of letting the dragons delete a toddler, we sent her back to the orphanage. Great parenting, everyone! Eventually, Lady Liadrin looked at this chaotic orphan, who the time-traveling dragons were afraid of, and said, yeah, she seems like daughter material. Liadrin adopted Salandria and raised her in the Blood Knights. We've seen Salandria grow up in real time. She went from a small NPC in Shattrath to a full-grown Blood Knight Squire in Shadowlands. The dynamic here is incredible. Liadrin is the high-ranking general of the Holy Order, and Salandria is a kid who grew up watching her mom beat up gods. It's a very like mother like daughter situation, except instead of inheriting a jewelry box, Salandria is inheriting the responsibility of defending a magical font of infinite power. In Midnight, the Void is invading, and if there are 2 people the Void hates more than anyone, it's a paladin who literally sees the light, and her daughter who is prophesized to be a problem. Liadrin is going to be the frontline commander. She's the one who has to tell the Void, sorry, we're closed, while maintaining her perfect hair. Salandria is the wild card. Will that dark future the Bronze Dragons feared finally come into play? Or will she be there to prove that one can outrun your destiny if your adoptive mom is scary enough? One thing is for sure, if the Void tries to touch the Sunwell, they aren't just fighting an army, they're fighting a very protective mother-daughter duo with a lot of holy power and 0 patience for tentacle monsters. And for now, the part you've all been waiting for, my predictions for the chaotic family reunion that is World of Warcraft Midnight. First, let's address the elephant in the room. or rather, the paladin in the room, if you will. We need to talk about the Windrunner curse. If you look at the track record for the Windrunner boy toys, it's not great. Sylvanas had Nathanos Blightcaller, who is currently a pile of ash in the maw. Varisa had Ronan, who famously got turned into a mana pile of ash during the siege of Theramore. That leaves Illyria, and our favorite human flashlight, Turalyon. Historically speaking, being a Windrunner significant other is a high-risk profession, and you should probably get hazard pay. If Blizzard follows the pattern, Turalyon is basically walking around with a giant target on his shiny, light-forged back. Is he the next heroic sacrifice to give Illyria that final push into the void? Honestly, if I were him, I'd be checking my life insurance and staying far away from anything purple. But the family drama isn't the only thing that's going to explode. My second big prediction is the inevitable clash between Rameth and Umbric. We've already seen the tension in the short story The Void Between, which if you haven't listened to, go do it. But in Midnight, the gloves are coming off, Rameth is the ultimate no void allowed bouncer, and Umbric is the guy trying to bring the literal void into the VIP lounge. I'm predicting a massive showdown where Umbric, in a desperate effort to save the Sunwell, finally stops flirting with the darkness and gives into the void. Whether he becomes a hero who controls it, or the next raid boss we have to put down, that's the real question. Either way, Silvermoon's about to get a lot messier before it gets better. But what do you think? Is Turalyon doomed to follow Ronan and Nathanos into the great beyond? And is Umbric a ticking time bomb? Let me know your wildest theories in the comments. Until next time, keep your hair perfect and your sun well protected. I'll see you in Azeroth, and as always, try not to stand in the fire.